see by show of hands, anyone who has not been to a presentation like this about this particular project. Okay, because I have a few slides in here that kind of give a good overview of the major design features, and I don't want to belabor them too long if you've already seen this presentation. But tonight we do want to go over a quick brief overview of the project, give you a status update of the construction that's ongoing today, and also a look ahead to what's coming in the weeks and months to come. And then we have a whole host of issues that we have heard from the community that we would like to try to address this evening. We will invite you to ask questions at any point during the conversation, so we don't, because there are so many topics we're going to be tackling, we don't laser pointer, so bear with me. This is exactly the same image as you would have picked up at the front door this evening, with an overview of the construction project that is ongoing. On it, you'll see references later in the presentation to ramp letters, so we have them labeled on this for you. So ramp A and B, C and D are all on the east side of the interchange. The ramp E is the directional ramp that cuts right across South Queen Street with the current refuge area where you can now turn left and right onto Columbia Pike. And we're eliminating with this project a loop ramp just opposite of Queen Street. And we'll be realigning the directional ramp, ramp G as we call it, from southbound Washington Boulevard to Columbia Pike. And then this intersection will become signalized. As part of this project too, we will be restricting movements at the Quinn Street intersection where there is currently a signal, so that intersection will no longer be signalized, and the movements will be restricted to a right turn entrance only, so that we can give favor to this intersection at Queen Street that will have the full access intersection through signalized means. And then Rolfe Street is unaffected by our project. It's technically outside of the limits of this project. Some other improvements that we're making, we are putting in a half signal that will only affect the westbound through movement and the ramp B traffic. So it will help allow traffic to dissipate from that ramp onto Columbia Pike. We are also realigning ramp D to opposite of South Worm Street, and that intersection will become signalized, so that allowing now left turns from ramp D through the traffic signal onto Columbia Pike, which will help dissipate some of the otherwise traffic that forms, the queues that form on ramp B, trying to also go westbound on Columbia Pike. There is also a dual box culvert that's conveying a live stream through the interchange. It is a dual 8x10 box culvert. The existing one today is only 7.5 by 10 feet. So it's under capacity to carry the flows of the stream, especially during some of these high flood events or high rain events. And so it will be a bit longer than the existing. You can see a little bit in the light gray here and probably better on the individual maps that you have. The existing survey shows where the existing outfall is of this box culvert. So we're extending it considerably further downstream and aligning the outfall to be more in line with the stream so that it will have less of an erosive effect on the stream channel. Is that it in a nutshell? Am I missing anything big? All right, we'll move on to the next slide. This is an image of the structure before we began construction on it. This is not what it looks like today, but what it did right before we started construction. And at the end of the project, we hope it looks something like this.
What direction is this?
This is facing eastbound. So there's a few things that are a little out of sync with this image, in that you're not seeing the vertical curve underneath the bridge and the perspective truly as it's being built. But if you travel to the east side of the bridge today, you'll see these abutment walls have been going up, and these wing walls with a nice running block pattern. And what you will see in the next few weeks, pylon? Next couple of months?
Yes.
Okay, in the next couple of months you'll see these pylons being constructed in each of the corners of the bridge. It also, we had a citizen task force, if you will, named Bridge Working Group, work with us over a series of 8 meetings to help develop some of these architectural design treatments that we're adding to this project, and also getting it named the Freedmen's Village Bridge. And so there will be the names depicted in the concrete of the pylon, and also bronze medallions that will be placed that commemorate the Freedmen's Village. Now I'd like to turn it over to Joe McGuire, Construction Manager, to lead us through
What's being coming up in the next few months, basically the rest of the year, and a couple other major activities that we'll be doing, just so you can have an idea of what's coming up. Completed to date, as you see on here, we started the job in 2012, and we've done some sanitary sewer work east of Route 27, temporary pavement detours for traffic switches for the major traffic detour that we do when we close 244. We've done that one time so far when we did the first bridge demolition. That has been completed. Some other utilities, and then of course the demolition of the first stage of the bridge. Box culvert has started, the new dual box culvert that Tina described, about 25% complete with that. And we've started construction on the new ramp A and B configuration that you see in the handout. And then of course the northbound bridge, the new configuration is going to have two separate bridges. You'll have a northbound bridge and a southbound bridge. The northbound bridge is currently under construction, and if you've been out there, you've seen the architectural abutment and wing walls going up. So projected look ahead schedule. Right now, in the next couple months, we'll be focused on building the bridge. That's where most of the work has been ongoing currently. Then we also will be starting some of the ramp construction. So I believe Tina showed ramp D. We'll be constructing the new ramp D soon, which will be shifting traffic over and then aligning it with South Warren, and then also putting a signal at that intersection. So that'll be going in the next couple months. In addition to that, we'll have a signal in a temporary configuration down at ramp A and B with Route 244. So you'll see two new signals going in on Columbia Pike in the next couple months. A little more long-term, next year we'll be demolishing the second stage of the bridge after we switch traffic onto the new bridge. So we'll be continuing the rest of this year to build a new bridge and all the approaches and ramps that will be connected to the new bridge. Continuing to build the box culvert, and then of course once the existing bridge is completely demolished, we'll start construction on the new southbound bridge structure. We do have a sound wall that will be going in along Route 27, and then of course in 2015 we anticipate being completed, and we'll be completing all the ramp signals, landscaping, paving. Right now, completion is scheduled for August of 2015. Right now, we're in stage 2. We're transitioning into stage 3. This depicts stage 3, and you can see some of the major features that are getting ready to come up that don't currently exist. But once we shift traffic over to ramp D, we will have a signal here, and the existing ramp from eastbound 244 to northbound 27 will be closed. So we will have a signal operational at these ramps in 244, and we'll be allowing a left-hand turn movement from eastbound 244 onto ramp A, which will get you to northbound 27. So that's going to be a fairly significant change that's upcoming. Right now, currently, you cannot make a left-hand turn here. Some people try to do that. Some other major items, obviously, we're going to continue building the bridge during this stage and all the approaches as we just talked about. So once this bridges and the approaches are built, we'll be switching traffic onto the new northbound bridge structure. This is some pictures of the current construction ongoing today. So you can see the architectural details on the abutment walls. So pretty close to what the architect's rendering is. So that, I believe, is abutment A. And this is the other side showing the wing wall in addition to the abutment wall. So currently we're still constructing the walls and building the substructure of the bridge, and we're backfilling all the walls with a special design, lightweight concrete, and that's what you see the equipment up here in this area. So it's a special concrete that's being utilized because of the poor soils in this area. That's less weight.
While you're building signs, I just wanted to mention also, we do have 2 cylinders of this lightweight concrete sitting up here on the front table. So if y'all are interested in getting a sense of exactly what this material is like, you're welcome to come up and touch it afterwards. It's very lightweight concrete, and it's kind of a unique aspect to this project. Yes, sir.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that was one of my questions this evening.
And we don't want to whoops after, but we're telling you up front what the numbers say, and the reality that we have to live with really don't jive when it's a reality for us to get out of this community. And I'd like to, whoever who's taking notes, and put it on record.
Okay.
I agree.
Another one of the major activities we have coming up will be setting the structural steel across Columbia Pike for the new northbound bridge structure. And in order to do this, we need to shut down traffic on 244 completely, and that includes all vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists just in the bridge area. So no traffic will be allowed to pass under the existing bridge or under where we'll be erecting the steel. Right now, this work is planned for the weekend of August 3rd and 4th, with the backup date of the 10th and 11th, in case we can't do that because of weather on that weekend. As we talked about before, this is the same detour we'll be using that we did previously when we did the bridge demolition, if everyone remembers that. It'll just be over one weekend, and we will have, this is kind of the detour, you will have for both pedestrians, bicyclists, and traffic. There will be there's a signal at Route 27 and the intersection of this crossover that will be turned on just for the weekends. Currently, right now, it's just all green, so it really doesn't change. Traffic will be restricted to a right-in only at South Queen. So you will not be able to exit out of South Queen at all.
Excuse me, will the ramp to 27 and 395, will that remain open?
Yes. Yeah. That will remain open, so you'll be able to go up this ramp.
So the light will still be at Quinn Street? If
Correct.
you can't.
The light will still be operational at Quinn Street. You'll be able to exit Quinn Street. You'll be able to make a right-hand turn, but only to access the ramp to 395. If you wanted to continue to Columbia Pike, you'll need to go straight and then up through the detour and around to continue east on Columbia Pike.
So I just want to be clear, we will not be able to get out of Queen Street except to turn right onto the ramp?
No, you will not be able to get out of Queen Street at all,
Okay.
even to go on the ramp. There will be no turning out of Queen Street. We will allow ingress only, so you'll be able to make a right turn into Queen Street only. And this will all be signed, and barrels and barricades, and so it should be well signed, so it shouldn't be any confusion. Last time we did it, it went very well. We really didn't have any problems. Everyone seemed to follow it very well. So. Any questions?
And what hours will they be installing the steel beams?
I'm sorry?
What will the hours be that they're installing the steel beams?
Great. You wanna? Is it 7? What time are they going to start on Saturday when they do the steel beam?
I'll start setting steel,
Yeah.
probably about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
They'll start bringing the training.
And
8 a.m.
And they actually won't start correcting
Yeah.
steel until about 9.
We will be setting up the detour and doing all the closures on Friday night, starting around 9:30. We anticipate that being. This is just a picture of the detour that will be in place while we have just over the weekend. This is an additional detour for traffic traveling on northbound Route 27 to access westbound 244. They will be coming up to 2nd Street and going down Courthouse. Yes, Courthouse back to 244.
Again, this is exactly the same as what we had done in November of last year during their partial bridge demolition. So of all of the ramps at the interchange that are open today, the only one that is not going to be open and accessible during that particular weekend is what we call loop ramp B. So if you look on your diagram, you see the big loop ramp in the northeast quadrant of the interchange. If you're wanting to come from Washington Boulevard and get off at that ramp, you'll instead follow this detour up to the 2nd Street South interchange, cut over to Courthouse Road, take a left on Courthouse, it'll bring you right back down to Columbia Pike.
In addition to all that, we are doing obviously some utility work. One of the major upcoming activities that we'll be doing, and we discussed at the last meeting, is the sanitary sewer work. We'll be putting in a whole new sanitary sewer main, which will replace the existing aging and failing sewers that are running along Columbia Pike and down towards Long Creek, Branch Creek. This shows in green the path that the new sewer will take, and we'll be crossing both South Queen Street and South Quinn Street, and then tying in to an existing manhole up by South Roll. When we do the crossings of both South Queen and South Quinn, in order to safely do the work, the sewer is very deep, we'll have large equipment, we'll have large holes opened up. So South Queen right now is a fairly narrow street, so the only way to safely do the work there is to close the street down while we do the crossing. There's also an existing sewer running down South Queen that we have to tie into our new sewer. So we'll have a manhole in the middle of the road, a new manhole there. So for approximately 1 to 2 weeks, we will be closing South Queen Street down completely, and we will have this detour in place. Right now, we anticipate this work to be done in September this year. So when we get closer, we will send out additional notification with the detour routes. If you want to have that information, you can give us your email up front, and we can send that out to you. It'll also be posted on the VDOT website, and I think out through other various publications. Yes, sir. I know in the last meeting, we discussed closing South Quinn, and we got a lot of input from you all, from other citizens, and good input. And we considered a lot of different options when we close South Quinn, which would close your only signalized intersection, ingress and egress. Some of the things we considered was a temporary signal South Roth when we close South Quinn, but we felt the best option was to keep the signal at South Quinn operational, and we will do the work in phases rather than doing it all at one time. So we will always be allowing traffic to exit South Quinn via the signal at all times.
Yeah, but the problem is that when you're exiting South Quinn to Columbia Pike, the exit is blind. There's a blind exit there. Cars don't usually stop.
The signal will be in operation as it is today. I can't speak to whether cars obey the traffic signal or not.
Yeah, but it's very
Yeah, but
frequent
that's a
that those
safety
cars do not stop. When
That's a
you're
safety
stopped
issue for us
at
and
that
children.
intersection, either coming off of Washington Boulevard or coming off of Queen Street, people don't realize that there's that incline, and half the time they're not paying attention anyway, and then with those directions where some people can go straight and some can go left, they're like...
Close for South Quinn, so we will be allowing egress only out of South Quinn during this time. If you need to enter into the neighborhood, it'll have to be via South Roth or South Queen, which will then be reopened by this point.
Egress is...
So a noise analysis was done in 2007 using the updated...
2008.
It was done in 2007, actually, with the... we do have an update and a noise sensitivity analysis that was done with that. So the way we do this is we take the design your traffic and we input it into a noise model. And the 3 criteria that we look at before we evaluate noise mitigations is the warrants criteria, the feasible criteria, and the reasonableness criteria. And as part of the criteria, we're going to give you an overview of the results of that noise analysis that was produced, which was updated in 2007, and some of the results with this aspect of it here. So, warrants. That criteria means, are there noise impacts? Do we have a 66 decibel or greater average hourly noise level at sensitive receptors, in this case, somebody in your community? So there's 2 types of noise impacts. One is approach or exceed the federal criterion of 67 decibels. And in Virginia, we are to define what a noise impact is approaching or exceeding. So in Virginia, 66 decibels is considered a noise impact. And that is usually experienced in existing corridors such as the one you live in. The other type of noise impact is what's called an increase above existing, and that's where noise levels change by 10 decibels from the existing condition to the future condition, and that's mostly experienced on the new types of roadway projects, where there's no roadway now and we're putting in a new roadway in the future. So when we looked at the analysis, this is figure 3 from the updated noise analysis, and the sensitive receptors with the numbers here are what were used in the noise model to represent the neighborhood. As you can see, these red circles here is where the noise model did predict noise impacts. It did, which was 66 decibels and higher, which comes to your statement, why wouldn't you go down to these areas to predict higher noise levels? These noise levels here are between 4 to 6 to 7 decibels higher than what we monitored this morning. So we're closer to the noise source. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 receptors in that area, and that receptor 3A did not experience a noise level of 66 decibels or greater to constitute a noise impact. Now, when we have noise impacts, we then evaluate noise mitigation. The second part of the criterion is what's called feasibility. Essentially, does the noise barrier work acoustically, and can it be constructed? Now, part of the feasibility is we have to protect, and the definition of protect is 5 decibels of noise reduction, the noise-sensitive receptor that would be impacted by noise. And then we have to look at, if this thing works acoustically, can we actually construct this noise mitigation feature? Are there engineering conflicts? Right-of-way constraints, drainage conflicts, utility conflicts, safety conflicts. A safety conflict would be a sight distance issue. Right there at the intersections of Quinn, Queen, or even Rolfe could cause a sight distance issue, which would exacerbate the traffic issues you were talking about earlier this morning. Now, when we took a look at this, receptors 3.2, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, all had conflicts. If a noise barrier would have been studied here, we would have blocked off the pedestrian access on the sidewalk as well as those individual homes' access to their sidewalks. So a noise barrier could be evaluated for these receptors here. Now, because we didn't have any conflicts in this area where you see the green and the 3 reds that just popped up, a noise mitigation feature in the form of a noise wall was evaluated as part of the noise analysis. And in this case here, those green receptors are receiving at least 5 decibels of noise insertion loss, or they're protected, or greater in this situation here. Now, the next part of the criterion is what's called the reasonableness criterion. If we have warrants, we'll evaluate noise mitigation. If it's feasible and it can be constructed under the feasibility aspect of it, we then take a look at the reasonableness aspect of it. And in short, is the noise barrier cost effective? The 1997 state noise abatement policy at the time this analysis was conducted, for a noise abatement feature to be considered reasonable, it had to be less than $30,000 per protected resident. As well as, and to figure that out is you take the cost of the noise barrier and you divide that by the amount of protected properties that noise barrier is protecting, and it has to be less than or equal to $30,000. To get the cost of the noise barrier, take the length times the height times $45 per square foot. That $45 per square foot is determined by the average cost of noise barriers in Northern Virginia. So we have a history of bid tabs that allows us to reference back to get the cost of that noise barrier. So, in short, so far we've decided warrants. We did have noise impacts as part of this. Number 2, we decided that as part of our evaluation that we did have a feasible noise barrier for a small portion of the community where noise impacts occurred. Now we're looking at the cost effectiveness. Now, the cost of the noise barrier with the dimensions that we evaluated was $348,480. Because that protected 4 homes, we divided the number 4 into that cost, which equals $87,120 per benefited or protected resident, which is $57,000 higher than the $30,000 allowed. So it did not meet the reasonableness criteria. Now, these criterion are set by FHWA, and we are given latitude at the time to set what these cost ratios would be, and at the time of this analysis, from 1997 to 2010, it was $30,000 per benefited resident. So we acknowledge that there were noise impacts out there. We did evaluate a noise mitigation feature. It just did not meet all the criterion to move forward in the project. So that being said, that's really the entire process pared down into about 8 to 10 minutes of discussion. So to give you the credit for knowing that the noise levels would be higher towards the main roadway, you were 100% correct. Any questions on that?
So should we assume, that based on what you said, that you established that there is a noise problem, but it's too expensive to deal with for this project?
Under the criterion that was set forth, that is correct.
But that should have been said on
Not that you felt in the sense that the noise is a great impact, but the whole traffic pattern is a safety issue that has the potential for loss of life with the traffic that we live every day trying to get out of this community. So could you kind of pick up from here and continue?
I can talk a little bit about the history, and I don't want to belabor it too long, but I've been with this project now since 2004 when I was first hired at VDOT. This was an intersection that we had studied at the time from a safety perspective. We looked at the accident occurrence over a 3-year time period for Rolfe Street, Quinn Street, and Queen Street. The Queen Street intersection was experiencing about twice as many accidents on average per year than the other 2 intersections. And most of those accidents were left turners turning into Queen Street and left turning back out onto Columbia Pike. Those are the predominant number of types of accidents. There were 36 in the 3-year period that we studied. I believe it was 14 at Rolfe Street, somewhere about 16 to 18 at Quinn Street. We looked at the accidents individually. We took a look at some of the causes and impact, or the causes to those accidents. I would have to agree with you about the Quinn Street signal that there are a lot of red light runners. There are a lot of folks who, I think, especially given the time of day, you're on an east-west corridor, so you've got the sun rising in the east. I think that can momentarily blind people as they're driving through the intersection early in the morning, can make it more difficult for them to recognize the red light. Part of the benefit of this project, by moving that signal down to Queen Street, will draw more attention to the fact that there will be turning maneuvers at that intersection. And by virtue of just having a traffic signal there, it would draw that additional attention. And it will also give more time for people to react to the red light, as it's no longer set on the horizon where the sun could interfere, but set down in the valley where close to the bottom of the vertical curve. So we did study traffic accidents over that 3-year period. And the original project that we started back in 1996 actually extended much further than the project does today. But we had a funding shortfall in about the year 2002 that was identified, that we could no longer purchase the 4 homes that would have had to have been acquired, as well as make all of the improvements from, I believe it was South Scott Street, all the way through to the other side on South Orm Street. And so we actually had to reduce the scope of our project at about that time. And again, this predates me and my time at VDOT. But there was a cost reduction analyses done for a number of different configurations of the interchange that were studied to figure out what would be the most cost effective and still get us to the point where we could replace this crumbling bridge. This bridge was built in the early 1940s. It's got significant delamination. The concrete is falling off in chunks. It needs to get replaced. It's getting replaced to be taller to provide vertical clearance under the bridge for the streetcar. It's also going to be much longer to accommodate some additional improvements on Columbia
I think
Pike.
everyone here wholeheartedly supports the replacement of the bridge. If you look at record over a period of history, you'll see that it was this community for 20 years that have plugged in trying to get the bridge replaced. So all of us, you're preaching to the choir in that respect, because we all
that we
support.
did commit to looking at. So I just want to make sure, and if I've missed anything, if you all can chime in and let me know. One was, is there anything that can be done to enhance the signal at South Quinn today while it's under construction? Anything to make it more visible? Or to do advanced signing, anything? I mean, it's an existing problem that's there today, but since it's under construction,
You could try to fix it.
And Mr. Wentz and we will work with them to see if there's anything that could be done to enhance what's, not an ideal situation.
Including potentially adjusting the timing and giving more green time to the traffic coming out of the community.
As
Right.
well as
So-
increasing the amount of all red. so
Right,
that
to look at the all red
Sure,
so that
everybody's
everybody's
stopped.
stopped together. Anything that could be done, signal timing.
Good.
And that was also an issue in terms of, with everything under construction and the changes that are being made, that you want to be sure that you have enough green time to get out of the community and not too much stacking back in the community. The other thing was talking about slowing down traffic on Columbia Pike. And Mr. Wentz, that would be a function where they would do a speed study.
Right.
And he did say that he has a number of commitments already underway, that he's committed to the Arlington Board, as I understood it, but that he thought they could do something in the January timeframe. He was a little concerned about what kind of results they might get, because it is under construction, that could skew
Right.
the results, but he did agree that they would look at that. Yes.
He did also say that he would be contacting the police tomorrow morning.
Yes.
He's contacted the police tomorrow morning to discuss additional enforcement, and at least in visibility, having somebody on site that would help slow cars down, because most people react to blue lights. When they see them, they do tend to slow down. So he will reach out to the police tomorrow. Before I know that they're going to kick us out of here. The Arlington View neighborhood sign, we are working hand in hand with the county to identify means and methods to move it, and our contractor is trying to work to identify a location where it can be moved to once. Moving it once, hopefully it will be able to preserve that sign without causing substantial damage to it. So we are still investigating it. We do not have a definitive answer yet, but we are working that issue, and we do hope that we're going to be able to preserve the neighborhood sign. Our idea right now is to move it forward closer to Columbia Pike, but we have to check to make sure that it's not in conflict with where the utility work is going to be ongoing and some of the other design features. But we're working with the county to try to find a suitable solution. I'm not going to leave this up there. What I want to leave up there is my contact information,
Good.
as well as that of Jeff Austin, our design build project manager from Shirley Contracting. You may feel free to send me an email if we did not address your concerns tonight adequately. We are trying to be as transparent as possible. We are working hard to provide updates on the project website. The website is also listed at the top of the slide. We're doing monthly status updates with just some photographs and a description of the ongoing work and what's coming up. And we're also trying to provide information on this website that would be helpful to you. So this PowerPoint presentation tonight, along with some of the narrative to go along with it, with each slide, will be posted to the website. It gives us probably about a week to finalize it. We want to have our public affairs folks look it over before it gets posted, make sure that we're doing a complete, thorough job. It's always good to have a fresh set of eyes look on anything that we're going to post on the website, make sure that it's understandable to them, and if they can understand it, then we'll make sure that it gets posted. So it'll take a few days, but we'll get it up there.